Servus and hello, Matthias Eichler here, and this is Singletrack. This is a very special episode with a very good friend of mine, and we are here to talk about Beast of Big Creek. Brent Miller ran the race, and he is here with me to tell his story. These last couple of weeks were a bit nutty in the Singletrack global headquarters. We made it down from Mount Eleanor, but barely unpacked the rock candy running event equipment, as the little backyard adventure is right around the corner. This Saturday we race LBA Park in Olympia. LBA this year is a 6-hour challenge, and I'm super excited to see who's coming out to run just a single loop and who's gonna push themselves for the full 6 hours. Online registration closes August 4th at midnight, and we still have some open spots. If you want to come out, visit littlebackyardadventure.com and join us. We also allow day of race registration. Just show up at LBA Park at 6 a.m. Race starts at 7, and you can grab a bib for $50 and join us running these twisty trails in the incredible LBA woods. All right, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors, Tailwind Nutrition. They just launched a brand new product called Active Hydration. If you need something to refresh yourself after not super intense workout, their 4 new flavors of Active Hydration are delicious and just the right amount of kick you need. Kevin Hayward, State Farm, your local insurance agent who's on top of all your needs when it comes to home, auto, and life insurance. Ole Fed, the local community bank with heart, and Club Ole, the road running club that loves our trails. Before we hear from Brent, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to all the volunteers who made this event possible. Rob and Ben at the summit, Esther and the not so much kids anymore kids at the aid station, and everyone down at the campground and finish line helping with parking, cheering, timekeeping, and making sure everyone had a great time, had enough watermelon, and experienced a day to remember. And to all of you runners out there, a huge thank you for coming out, challenging yourself at Mount Eleanor, and running the Beast of Big Creek. Here is the 2022 podium for the summit race. First place women, Rachel Craig in 3:28. Second, Christine Zoskins in 3:29. And third, Kelly McDonald in 3:30. The women's race was really, really tight, and they all came in within just a minute from each other. It was super cool. DFL was Jackie Hoyer in 6:49. For the men's, first Conor Bryan in 2:46, second Casey Dirk in 2:51, and third David Sadowski in 3:08. DFL, Brian Stevenson in just over 6 hours. For the Forest Loop, the women's, Nell Aiello in 49:52, second Stephanie Wardynski in 57:07, third Hannah Johnson in 1 hour 8, and DFL Amber Sermano in 1:26. For the men's, first Gregory Bryan in 49:10, second Eric Heineman in 49:19, and third Robert Aiello in 56:01. DFL Alexander Bell in 1:29. Congratulations to everyone racing and everyone placing, and don't forget, last place finishers or DFL racers will get a free entry to the 2023 Beast of Big Creek. Hope to see you all out there next year. All right, here's Brent with his run at the 2022 Beast of Big Creek. Brent, you are on Singletrack. It's been a very, very long time. And I mean, you know, with my friends, it's always a little tricky in trying to get you guys on Singletrack, because you're all like, I don't know if it's like weird, humble, weird, like, I don't know what it is, but I'm glad that you're finally here. Welcome to Singletrack, Brent.
Thanks for having me on. We got something real to talk about this time too.
Oh, I see. So if I need to get you, if I need to get my friends on Singletrack, I have to like really have something cool to talk about. Well, before we dive into before we dive into the main affair, very briefly, we've been running. I don't know, when did we the first time run into each other? Do you remember?
I I don't. I know we had some interaction online for a while, Strava and Instagram and that sort of thing. I think it was leading up to when I did first LBA, maybe, or when I did it.
Yeah. I wonder. Perhaps you showed up to some of the O runs. Was it that?
That's when we probably first met.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then you ran the first LBA, and then you were like on and off injured, and we've ran Capitol Forest, and we had a couple incredible runs in the Olympics. We did a really cool run, Lake of the Angels and above, which I have some awesome pictures. Both you took of me and just pictures in general. That was a really incredible run. And then,
that was a good one.
Right? That was super fun. And then the other thing was that you were my running partner when we first explored and discovered the Eleanor to Mount Rose Connector Trail, right?
That's true. That was exciting.
That was super exciting, and I am very happy. Number one, this was one of the linchpin pieces that put the Cushman 6 route together, but also I'm really somebody who doesn't love exploring in unknown terrain by myself. And so I was very happy to have you with me. And it was a very exciting discovery because it could have gone either like an impossible route to nowhere or what it was, which is, oh, this is a really cool trail. I like this.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of hard to find the turnoff. You did some research ahead of time and kind of a sketchy trail too, so good to have someone there with you.
Yeah, no, for sure. Exactly. I remember, in fact, I remembered it when I went up there again now to mark the course for Beast, how we were sort of trying to find this turnoff and trying to find this turnoff because we had no idea what it would look like, right? And then when we actually found it, we were like, oh, that was actually a lot more obvious than we thought, right?
Yeah, right.
Well, and then, the trail is sketchy as like well-maintained trail goes, but the trail itself is surprisingly well established in terms of the ropes are solid and stuff. I mean, it goes a couple steps above regular trail running, right? I mean, it is definitely a little bit more remote. Well, part of the reason why I bring up my Via Monte Rosa, as I call my little segment on Strava, that connected trail, is that this upcoming weekend somebody is going out attempting the Cushman 6 route. And
oh, really?
Yes. And so there were a couple of things. Number one, Tabitha Collins from Kitsap Peninsula, she attempted it last year and then got completely turned around on Copper and had to spend the night, right? And then missed
Copper. Yeah, that's right.
Because she was, she pressed on time and stuff. She just had to get down and missed Cup Peak. And I had her on the show afterwards, her and Mary Flinders, to talk about it. But she went back out with Mary last week and again got completely turned around on Copper and again missed Cap Peak. Yeah, I know, right? And I was surprised that, especially after having done it again and kind of knowing what Copper and the descent of Copper really means in terms of just off-trail travel, that she would not go underprepared, but as she sort of talked about it on Facebook and we talked about it afterwards, she again sort of didn't really go in there with like fully on top of it. So this weekend, August 6th, I'm going to have somebody else go out and attempt it, which is fantastic.
That's sweet. I mean, she's an experienced runner, so just kind of speaks to the gnarliness of the route.
I know. And I mean, it's always weird when you put a route together like that. I don't know if proud is the right point. You're excited and you're fulfilled of having to have done a project like that. But then you're really nervous if other runners attempt it.
Sure, yeah. It's a responsibility.
I know, right? But now that a couple of people are attempting it, I mean, I feel like I'm itching, wondering if I should redo it and see, especially if you could have a car at staircase, which is something weren't able to have last time, right? We had to have.
Yeah, you did the whole loop.
We had to do the full loop, which sort of, in terms of just reserves and trying, how much you push on the last stretch, especially down from Wagon Wheel. Right? I think you could probably save yourself some time by knowing that staircase. Well, the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because you love that staircase area. You run out there a lot.
Yep.
And Eleanor is special, and you just ran Beast.
That I did, and it's even more special now.
It is.
I guess would be the word.
More special. It is. Well, it is weird. I always discovered that within me, that when you redo trails, you think beforehand that this is going to get boring, and it just never does, right?
Definitely not up there.
How many times have you done Eleanor now?
Not a ton, actually. I'm not sure exactly. Probably only 4 or 5 that I've actually summited. Somewhere in there.
Yeah. Fantastic. Have you ever done it in the winter?
I have not. I did it one time in I think it was fall. I did a Rose, came down, and then went up Eleanor. And I got turned around because of weather, and snow kind of in a boulder field.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually in winter or the full winter route that I was planning on, but it was wintry up there.
So, Beast of Big Creek, and we've done the preview show. The race has a big history. Were you aware of the race beforehand, before I took it over?
Yes. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but I had heard of it. Hadn't looked into it a lot, but knew it existed. So
when I took it over, you were like, you got to run it?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's on Eleanor. I said I didn't know much about it, and then you taking over, just obviously I had to do it.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. You were one of the first people to sign up for this thing, and I just talked with the National Forest today again, and we're looking at dates for next year, and taking on a project like that, right, from a race director point of view is such a completely different perspective on all of this. So I'm kind of excited to talk to you as somebody who, you helped me with your great American truck, which I always make fun of, but when it comes to hauling big stuff, it's very much...
It's nice to have.
It's very much appreciated. You helped me haul some stuff up there, but aside from that, you were just a runner, and you were very focused, and it's, I'm focused by figuring out, where do I put the route markings, and how do I get the permit paid, when you actually started training for this. And for us being connected on Strava, it was kind of funny too. Like, oh yeah, there's a whole nother side of this project, if you will, that I didn't really think about it. So tell me a little bit. I've talked a lot now. Tell me a little bit about, from your perspective, how did you get into this race? You knew the trails. You know all the trails in terms of what vertical gain and what challenges from the terrain you sort of expected. How did you prepare for this?
Not well enough. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm happy with how it went, but I did a lot of rock candy. In short, I didn't do super big volume. I've never really been a big volume guy. Not a huge amount of vert, but have a busy life and whatnot. I did what I could. I went to rock candy, did a couple doubles, went a couple times a week, and that's basically it. Just trying to get in some good, decent mileage and decent vert, I would say. How's your injury been? Because you've had foot injuries and back injuries, and so how has this been affecting you going into the training? Because your general fitness is great, that you didn't start from scratch, but were you concerned? Right. How did it hold up? I was concerned about the foot more so, ramping up the the volume. I've had plantar fasciitis for off and on for over 2 years. And it's actually, when I started to ramp up my mileage a little bit, it kind of started to feel better, or I didn't feel it as much. So I can barely feel it now every once in a while, so I'll take it. And the back hasn't really been an issue at all either. That's only an issue when it's an issue. Running doesn't seem to affect it unless it's already really bad, you know what I mean? So pretty good.
Well,
all in all.
Yeah, no, that's great, especially, Beast of Big Creek is an interesting race because it is only 14 miles. It's 5,200 feet of vert, right? But it's not something where, well, in a sense that if you are reasonable fit as a trail runner, you can accomplish it, and you definitely pushed it, but it's not something where you are worried about DNF. We had 0 DNFs, and it's,
most people can suffer through that type of mileage.
Yeah, especially since pretty much, the whole second half is all downhill, right? It's like you might as well make it back to finish. What are you going to do? Stop half a mile before the finish at the campground loop, and you're like, I'm done. I'm just going to stop here.
Camp out.
Scoop me up. Right, so it is a fairly easy race if you want to really complete it, unless you completely break apart on the up and don't even make it to the summit, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean that could be, but it's not an ultra where you really smartly have to ramp up the mileage and really work on nutrition and trying to get all of these pieces dialed, right? It's something that an average trail runner can pretty much jump in at any time.
Yeah. You got to get that time on your feet per se, and
yeah. Now, having said this, I'm making it sound very easy.
Let's not do that.
I was fascinated and I loved every moment of it. Seeing the faces of runners come in, and I think
sure you did.
The first words from you was like, "It hurts so much."
I was dead serious. That was all I could think of.
I mean, it is unique because it's not a VK race. It doesn't finish at the summit, right? It's not something so short that, Mount Marathon or so where it's so breakneck dangerous on the downhill, right? That it's sort of infamous, but it has a steepness to it that really, really gets to you, right?
Yes.
So
that it does.
That it does. So tell me a little bit how your race went, because that's the thing for me, right? I sent you all up there, and then you were gone, and it felt actually quite nice, especially compared to LBA, where the loops are so short, and then you have staggered starts, right? And so you have people coming in and out, right? Once people were off, I was like, okay.
Yeah, a couple hours.
Yeah, exactly. Is it too early for a beer at 9:30? Exactly. So you went out there. The trails were somewhat familiar to you. Tell me a little bit about how your race went.
Well, I started. So first things, just kind of standing around at the pre-race speech you gave and just seeing all the runners and stuff, it looked like a really, really strong group. I didn't know what to expect in terms of how it would perform, but seeing everybody there, men and women, I was like, man, there looks like a lot of really good athletes here.
Mm-hmm.
So I started close to the front of the pack, just to not get that bottleneck effect, and everybody was running pretty good for a while. There's like almost a mile where it's not quite flat, but pretty flat, really runnable. So just kind of running with a group. You know how it goes. You start to get uphill, you spread out a little bit. I was passing a couple people passed me, just that kind of thing, where the natural spread out hadn't really occurred yet. So just felt pretty good. Was pushing a little bit, trying not to push too hard because I knew there was a lot of climbing ahead, walking where I had to.
Did you feel like you benefited from knowing, especially the upper section of the course? Do you feel like there were a lot of people that you were able to catch because they sort of didn't really realize what they were in for, or did you think that especially the top group, the top 20 or so, they knew the trails, they knew what they were in for, and so it was therefore more competitive?
Yes and no. There were a couple people that passed me kind of early that I passed a little bit later on before the technical climb, but even knowing the course and having done Eleanor a few times, that technical section, which is the top almost 2 miles, that's where it really got hard.
Yeah.
It was like, I think everybody, whether you're pushing or not, had a hard time. It's 5,200 feet of gain in 7 miles. So
yeah,
I will say in the training, I would have liked more specific type of vert because, like I said, I did a lot of rock candy. That's not Eleanor type of vert.
So define that. Was that because it wasn't steep enough? Was it not technical enough? What were you sort of missing in your training?
Yeah, I would say both of those things. Steep and technical. There's some sections on rock candy where you get that, but just not prolonged, where you're really, really hiking for a while and it just really wears you down. Mm-hmm. You're just not specific in that. It's hard to match that Olympic style vert without actually going out there.
And it is truly the beauty of the Eleanor Trail. If you compare it to Rose is really runnable the entire way, and it is steep. And
right, but not very technical.
But really not technical, and that's really what gets you, especially if you're in a running mode and you're trying to push. Is that boulder field? It starts sort of just below the boulder field, right, where it's sort of past the winter route turn. I feel like that's when you have some big rocky steps and where terrain gets uneven and where your quads are not in a consistent running motion anymore, and you need to place your feet correctly, right? And if your heart rate at this point is already elevated and you still have, 1,800 feet of gain or so, and it just stays really technical, but not that technical that you need a rope and you sort of realize, I really need to gather myself. Okay, I need to get my breathing under control because otherwise I'll really mess up, right? It encourages you to keep pushing, but you're paying.
Yeah, it's just that, hands on the knees, taking big steps, using your quad muscles quite a bit. I did have a plan to go do Eleanor a couple weeks out, which I'm sure we'll talk about why I couldn't do that, but I can't really use that as an excuse because nobody could. Eleanor was off limits for a few weeks, so.
Yeah, exactly.
That might have helped, but who knows? That's just, one run in the training block, so.
Yeah, it definitely would have helped if you had never done Eleanor, right? I had a family friend, my brother-in-law, come when he ran the forest loop, and he came back down and he was like, oh my gosh, he blamed himself, but he's like, I didn't do any research. I got all the vert in the first half. I could have managed myself so much better, right? And that's the thing, if you're aware of what you are working with, because that's a challenge, especially for people who've never run beasts, is the early half, 2/3 of the uphill are sort of almost runnable because the grade is at a scale, or is it at a percentage where you sort of want to push it, but if you are just exhausting yourself early on and then you hit the technical part, then your quads just give out, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, kind of on that first few miles, there's some small sections where it kind of levels out. You can run, you can push the little climbs and just keep going, but that all changes once you get to the top.
Yeah.
Closer to the top.
No, for So you sized up your competition. Now you came in 7th, right? Did I get that correct? I guess I should have pulled this up. I'm the race director.
Yes. Yep.
So congratulations,
Yep,
right. 7th. It's very much in the front, and as you're saying, I too looked at the group. There were definitely a few people who took this race very casually for what it is, camping the night before community kind of race. But then there were some people who either very much knew, Connor, the first place finisher, so he knew what they were, because he had won it last year. He knew what he was getting into. He knew what he was here for. And second place finisher, I don't have his name in front of me. He does Illinois as a training run regularly, and he came out to race it, right? So you kind of aware.
Is that Casey something?
Yeah, I want to say so. Yeah, I feel bad that I don't, and I am not better prepared here for this. But there were definitely some runners who totally knew what they were in for, and you were part of that group. So you climb out the top. You like my little summit, my little snowfield redirect?
Yes, yeah, that made good sense. I'm glad we went around that.
Yeah, perhaps we should quickly talk about it, right? So we've had, and for people who didn't catch the pre-race episode a few episodes ago, we've had unseasonably late snow in the Olympics in May. So we actually got a snow level increase, which means I was worried, and I went up just before they had the trail closure at 2 weeks before the race, and there were still several sections where I had to travel over snow. In fact, the whole bottom part of the boulder field was completely snowed in, that I went straight over snow. And so I had no idea what 70-degree weather for 2 weeks would do to the snow. And then the National Forest Service and National Parks, they closed many of the trails in order to remove these mountain goats that were, as I mentioned previously, they're non-native, they're an invasive species there. They really shouldn't be there, so they had to remove them. So I couldn't access the trails until Friday. The race is Saturday. Friday morning, 11 o'clock. So I couldn't mark the course, but I also couldn't really give an update to you racers of what the conditions would be like. And I felt really bad. As a race director, my pre-race email went out, and I was like, I don't know, you might have to bring poles and spikes. You should have them in the car, because I really can't tell you what the conditions are.
Yeah.
And so by the time I then went up on Friday to mark the course, there was really only a small snowfield just below the summit. But at that time, that snowfield had been untouched. I was the first one up at the summit on Friday morning, and it looked really slippery, that I decided, in order to, for the race course for runners who want to go over fast, to sort of reroute and go above the snowfield, and which was a little bit of loose rock scree, off trail climbing, but it was just 50 feet below the summit. So it wasn't really that big of a deal, but it was a little reroute I had to do.
Yeah, it's also below the summit block there where you're talking about. It's kind of an open saddle area between the summit and the other outcropping. So it didn't really feel like off trail. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of open up there anyway.
Yeah, no, exactly. I looked at it, and I was just thinking, from if people go up there and do expecting, well-groomed trails, there is sort of where you might even have to use your hands a little bit. You have to be ready for that. Folks, my volunteers up at the summit, Rob and Ben, they actually took some awesome photos of you guys kind of making all these turns around the snowfield.
Oh, that's right.
And making your way up. So that was really cool to see. So the next thing is that you get to the summit. Talk to me in your mind, because we're talking about your insane downhill that is coming up now. So You make it to the summit. At what point did you plan this? Where you're like, okay, this is where I'm gonna try to win the race. How did you plan out this next section? Because if you would have given everything on the uphill, I don't know if you could have given so much downhill. How did you sort of manage this decision?
I don't know how much of a decision it was. I just getting up to the summit. A couple people had passed me on that last mile or so. The traverse.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what place I was in, ninth or 10th or something, and then got up to the summit. Was happy to see Ben up there. Happy to have no more climbing ahead of me. I don't think that I thought that I really planned to hammer that top technical section as much as I did. I don't really consider myself a good downhill technical runner. I never really have, but for some reason so the technical section is from the summit to the upper trailhead, which is, I think it's 1.6 miles.
Yeah.
That's the most technical. I just went all out on that. I was skipping steps in places where it's dangerous to run like that, and I passed a handful of people. I think I was in 5th place. I don't think I knew at the time what place I was in, but yeah, so I did. I felt like I was going fast, and I knew I was, but looking at it on Strava afterwards kind of proved that, because I was second of all time.
So yes, this is the interesting thing, right? And that is because of my aid station rerouting, replacement, setting it on the upper trailhead, you now get the full segment when you're running the race coming down from the summit to the upper, right? Because you wouldn't have gotten that because you would have bypassed the upper trailhead at all, and you would have just went down to Lothard, right? So there is a sort of a new segment that you hit, or an existing segment, but now the race hits that segment, and afterwards you upload it to Strava, you had second fastest time. And the one who has the crown is like a semi-professional runner, right? So you screamed down this thing, and
I was 12 seconds slower.
This is absolutely insane. Were there a lot of other runners or hikers? How was the traffic? I mean, going that fast is like almost scary.
There was a decent amount. I guess, if you're hiking uphill and, people that were either runners coming back up or coming up still, or hikers, they just see it coming and they watch out. I don't expect everyone to just get out of my way, but that's pretty much what everyone did.
Okay.
As they probably did for all the runners coming downhill.
Yeah.
They just, it's respect the fact that you're running fast. And so there was a decent amount of traffic, but I don't know, I just blew by them, I guess, and
I didn't just skip the steps, I also skipped the hikers altogether. We're just bounding downhill.
I thanked everyone for stepping aside, though, of course.
Exactly. No, that's amazing. So you make it to the aid station. You know now that the rest of the trail is, from a technical point of view, easy running, right? You've got downhills, you had a couple little flat sections past the bridges on the forest loop section, there are tiny little uphills. Where are you at in your head? Are you now saying, okay, I've overtaken some people on that crazy downhill, I'm going to try to maintain it or push it? Or you're like, wow, this was fun, now I'm just making sure I'll make it to the finish?
Well, I wish it would have been the former, but coming out of that aid station, which I did not stop at, which is another mistake we can talk about in a minute. So it does that V to the aid station, so you're forced to kind of stop, and then it goes not quite uphill, but flat with a slight up incline.
Mm-hmm.
And right then, as soon as I kind of made that stop, which it wasn't even a stop, it was just a really sharp turn, my legs, I just realized they were jelly. They were totally shot. So, and I also, before passing the aid station, I just passed a couple more guys that were seemingly running pretty strong. You think, I was out of, or almost out of fluid, but I'm just like, at that point, I didn't know my legs were kind of shot yet, and It's like, well, I can suffer without a drink for a little while. I want to just keep this going. But it ended up that my legs were pretty toasted. I wasn't able to run that fast for the remainder, which was another almost 5 miles, I believe, which should have been nice cruising. And then also because it was a little longer and I was hurting the lack of hydration, I was feeling that too. So you wouldn't think in a 14.5 mile race you can blow up your legs too early and make a hydration mistake, but that's the beauty of this sport, I guess.
but here we are. You said your legs were jelly and you made a hydration mistake. Do you think if you could have rectified this by stopping at the aid station and properly refueling?
That would have helped, yeah. Refueling would have helped. I think I don't know how much it would have helped the legs. I think the damage had kind of been done on the technical descent there, but I might have been, hydration obviously is important, and that probably would have helped overall. I don't know if it would have changed my placing at all. You know, the two of the guys that I had passed that repassed me after that aid station, I can't say that I would have caught up to them or beat them, but because they were running pretty strong. But yeah, stopping would have helped to some degree.
It would have made you suffer less.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, do you? I mean, you know, having second place on that Strava segment is almost better than overtaking these last two guys. But do you feel like you would have made a strategically on a downhill, would have done something different in hindsight, or for next year?
Yes, I would not have gone that hard on that section.
Oh man, I wish I would have been able to see that.
It was a blur.
It was a blur.
It's not to say that it can't be done. I didn't have that in my legs at the time to go that fast on that section and then continue running strong downhill for that long.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is 5 miles and it is sort of all downhill, and in some respects you think you can just cruise, right? But it just, I mean, those 5 miles, they do drag, especially these, I don't know, last mile or so, when you get sort of close to the campground, and you feel like, I should be back, right? I can smell the campfire. What is happening here? Yeah,
I know. I was, even when it kind of started to flatten out a little bit and it wasn't very steep, I was like, I wanted to walk, and I kept looking behind me, expecting more people to pass. I was just, it felt like I had run an ultra. You know, those last few miles where you want nothing more than to be done.
I mean, it is really fascinating that a little 14-miler, just a half marathon, a little bit more, can really destroy people so much, right?
It is, yeah. I mean, I set it up for the race, but I've run 50 Ks and not felt that beat up. I mean, maybe it's a part of it is the training specificity, but yeah, I was just, my body and legs were just toast and hammered.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was the part. I mean, I don't organize these races just to destroy people. That's a fun side benefit. No, I don't do that on purpose. But it was really fascinating to see the pain on people's faces, but then to see them express how much enjoyment they get out of this, because we talk about how hard it is, but it is just an absolute beautiful course, right?
Oh yeah, it's amazing. You know, it's just, even having done Eleanor, you know, you put the race day vibes, mix that into it, and you want to push a little bit, and all of a sudden you're hurting. But isn't that part of why we do this?
It is, right? I mean, in some respects, it is. We're trying to push ourselves in order to get to know us better, right? To get to a place where we perhaps otherwise wouldn't, and especially the luxury, if you will, of not being pushed by other people, demands at work and social demands and whatever, right? But being able to truly be able to do this on our own terms, I think that's what creates a very unique personal discovery, right?
Yeah, totally. It's even a more sense of accomplishment when you do something that is challenging and you decided to do it.
Yeah, I just watched a video with Steve House on a mountaineering project that he had done many years ago, and it was just updated and done in blistering speed. And he said at the end, the mountains are there for the people to find out who they are and why we are here. And everybody's got a different story, and it's probably here for a different reason. Everybody has something inside themselves that they have to discover that's unique to them. And what matters is going and searching. And I think that's sort of the beauty of these races, and why we sign up is sort of we get to experience who we are and what we're capable of and stuff, and sort of breathe life back into us, even if when we look at the finish line we look depleted.
Yeah. Hopefully it makes some of the other smaller issues and problems in life seem a little bit easier.
Yeah. And just this moment to breathe. Sometimes it's hard to sit in a vacuum to try to meditate and try to push the thoughts and the problems and the issues in our life away, right? But when we're out there and you have to problem solve on the fly and things are hurting and rocky steps come flying at you as you're trying to run up or down or so, right? And you're so distracted by the moment in front of you that you can't think of the bigger problems in life.
Yeah, exactly. And I find that in training too. You're not thinking about bills or work schedules most of the time. It's just thinking about the trail.
Amazing. I mean, I have to say, for me as a race director, it was an incredible, fulfilling day. I mean, it was, it's directing races with the planning and preparation, everything. It's exhausting, but it's incredibly fulfilling to sort of envision a route. And yes, the race existed, and so I've sort of just taken over what has been done, but I sort of found a way of giving it my own coloring, if you will, and to be able to then invite people in and let them have this experience that you've been sort of thinking about for weeks at a time, and you've been preparing, and you're worrying and you're ensuring that everybody makes down the mountain safely, and nobody gets lost, and your course marking works, and you have enough food at the aid station, and all of those little things, right? And to then be able to invite people and give them this experience, and people are then have these eyes of true fulfillment, these smiles of joy of what they've accomplished, is truly rewarding.
Yeah. I can imagine. There was, I don't know how many of the people had never been up there, but I talked to at least a couple that had never been on Eleanor before. So to share that with somebody on a perfect day, weather-wise, is a pretty cool thing just in itself.
I mean, that was the other big thing, right? We haven't talked about the weather. Exactly. It was fairly cloudy for, I don't know, 2/3 almost off the way up. And I had no idea when we first started how the summit would be, and I walkie-talkied up to the summit, and the volunteers up there were saying it's the most glorious sunshine, and we see the volcanoes in the distance, and we have this incredible cloud cover below. And I was so excited for all of you runners, because I got that information before you guys came back down, right? And I was like, you're going to have an absolute glorious day.
Yeah, that's the best way, when it's a little bit cloudy and you kind of burst out of the clouds at some point.
Yeah, it wasn't too muggy then in the woods, because that's what it could have been, right? That it would have been a real slugfest early on, and you would have been almost already drained before you even make it onto the boulder field.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So I had run from our campsite to the race start, and there was a little bit of mist in the air, which we weren't expecting. And I was like, oh man, it's going to be so muggy in the woods.
Yeah.
But it wasn't bad at all.
It wasn't. No, exactly. Well, super. Well, thanks for coming out and running Beast of Big Creek this year. I'm busy with LBA this weekend, but my mind is sort of swirling about what to do next year. And I'm always somebody who has big ideas and big plans. And in some respect, I should just respect the race for what it is and saying, here is a summit race and a forest loop. You've got a 5-miler with 1,200 feet, and you've got the 14-ish miler with 5,200 feet, right? And that's what it is. But there's a part of me where I'm like, is there something else there?
There's some possibilities.
Yeah, is there a way of, if I extend it to 15-ish, then I'm at a 25K, could I then offer a double and make 50K, right? It's like, what story do I want to tell out there? And in some respects, these trails are sort of maxed out. I don't know, without making it feel sort of weird, arbitrary, or forced. I don't know that I can get more out of these trails, right? I mean, you start at the bottom. I can't really start much further without crossing the road and making it complicated for my permitting. And you can't go any further up. You can't really go any higher.
No, that's true. I'm sure you'll think of something.
So, I don't know. Would you do a double?
I'd probably sign up for
it. I mean, it would be such a different experience from a race management too, right? I mean, the volunteers would have to.
Yeah, I mean, think about, so the timing or the time that you'd be committing to would be quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, you know
what I mean? Like,
I'm just sitting in the campground with a cool beer, right? Cheering people in as they come in. So for me, this is fine. If you guys want to run a double, I can make that happen.
Yeah, that's true. You camped the second night there anyway. So.
Exactly. I camped another night. My wife's already talked about getting a van so we can camp in style, and I'm like, hey, wait,
nice.
We're getting a van now? I like this race directing.
Well, yeah, I think you should, like you do with all your races, get creative with it and put the rock candy spin on it. I think taking over the race and allowing it to continue, and the fact that it's on Eleanor, those two things alone are, paying tribute to what it was before. You're not moving the race. It's still going to be Eleanor.
Yeah.
So have fun with it.
What I love, and that is for me the easiest way where I want to expand on, and that is sort of the element beyond the race, and that is the after party. I was so delighted and surprised how many runners stayed behind and cheered the runners coming in. Having this shelter right by the finish line and seeing so many people linger. I've been to so many races in so many different variations, and people don't hang out. Either they've ran an ultra and they're so exhausted that they're collapsing, or it's an ultra and times are so stretched out between individual runners, right, that it's sort of exhausting to hang out there. But to have a couple beer in a cooler and have people sort of hang made it really special for finishers from the front to all the way to the back, right?
Yeah, that was pretty fun, just hanging out and meeting some people, and the fire pit was really nice too. Having the fire going was nice. Also, you get a chance to talk to some of the people you raced against, and that reminded me of something funny though. Another guy, Ian, which I think got 5th or 6th place, was one of the runners that I passed coming down that technical section. He was having some cramping issues. He had been ahead of me the entire race, and I passed him again, surprisingly, on that technical section. He was like, man, I'm just having some cramping issues. And I was like, as I was passing him, I was like, all you got to do is get beyond it. And he did pass me after that. And then he told me at the end of the race that, like, he was saying that in his head the whole time. After that, he's like, man, I just got to get beyond it. And it worked for him, so that was kind of cool.
I love it. You just gotta get beyond it. There is no way. You gotta make it back down the mountain anyway. So
yeah, well, it worked for him. So
exactly. Well, this was amazing. It was fantastic. Even the last place finishers that came in, I was excited. And a big shout out to the crew from the Evergreen Turtle Rockets who were camping the night before and the night after, and they were camped at a site where they could see the last runners coming down the trails. And so when they saw them, they came back from the campsite to the finish line. So even the last few runners coming in, they got big loud cheers, and there were people there, which was really cool because I, as a race director, I have to be there. I want to be there, but it feels awkward holding a cowbell all by yourself, right? And,
right.
And to be able to sort of have a group of people there and welcome and make it loud and noisy, I think that made it really special. And for the runners at the front and at the back of the pack. So I think that was really great, and sort of it's sort of, to me, sort of made special what the race in its beauty is, which is it's just short enough that it doesn't spread out as far, right? I mean, you were exhausted, you were hurting when you came down, but you weren't so collapsing that you were like, your wife drive me away. Right.
Actually injured
her. Exactly, right? You were able to hang out a while and meet other people. And so I think that's what made it really special. So I really, really liked that runners weren't immediately, okay, let's head home and find a nearby, I don't know, burger place or so, right? That people hung out.
Yeah, me too. That was cool.
Oh, it was super fun. Well, Brent, what's next? You've ran this thing, you recovered. Got any summer plans? What else is on your radar?
Well, as people do when they run these races, after you can finally walk again, you sign up for another race. So doing a 50K in a couple weeks.
Okay, which one?
Or a few weeks, I should say. The Backcountry Rise.
Oh, perfect. Backcountry Rise. Absolutely. Amazing. Yeah,
so that should be a fun one.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, you've got perfect training in for that one. I mean, I think Beast is the perfect tune-up race for that.
Totally.
Amazing.
And then looking forward to the Rock Candy 12-hour come September.
Oh, yes. Are you signed up for that?
I'm not yet.
Not yet? I'm excited.
But I will.
I was just out there a few days ago, and I looked at the clear cut that is on the, what is the eastern side of the trail. Usually I always go up the direct route to Rock Candy, but I went to that old hillbilly route, and I realized that there's a whole nother clear cut section, and I just looked at a couple different routes and stuff to see how to get this all finalized and locked in, and got excited for it. Well, awesome. Brent,
that's gonna be a fun one.
Thanks for coming out and racing the beast of the big creek, and thanks for helping me tell the story. I've had several people who were saying, hey, we need to hear how the race went. We need to hear follow up. And I'm like, well, I can't monologue that. I need somebody to help me tell that story. So I very much appreciate you coming in. Hey, before I let you go, tell people where they can find you, how they can connect with you, and I'm going to throw these links into the show notes.
Well, first of all, thank you for taking on the Beast of Big Creek so it stays alive. I think a lot of people are appreciative of that, and glad it didn't just die out. Too good of a race.
No, absolutely.
Just Brent Miller on Strava and Brent Miller 57 on Instagram. That's about it.
Perfect. That seems all fairly easy to remember. People check out Brent's Instagram and for epic photos from the Olympics. You love. I mean, I know you don't go out get out there as often as you want to, but you love the Olympics. There's a special place for you, and you have
definitely are.
had some really incredible experiences up there. And well, I hope that we get to share some miles sometime soon again.
Indeed. Same here.